I think I'm going to spend the evening playing with some Arduino stuff. So you like my hat? I want to start by telling you a story about my hat. This is a replica of Harrison Ford's hat from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yes, one of the most important movies ever. It came out when I was 13 years old, changed my life, gave me a new direction of the kind of action hero I fell in love with. And the same thing happened to a guy named Mark Kidder. Mark Kidder was a fan of Raiders, and he wanted a hat that was exactly like Harrison Ford's hat from Raiders. And he started to look at screen grabs, and he became very knowledgeable about how precisely that hat was made, and he started to notice something that no one else had figured out. It was that he noticed that the hat from Raiders was actually a different hat and cut in a different way than all the other hats for the other two movies. Specifically, the brim was cut differently, it seemed to shape differently on Harrison Ford's head, and Mark Kidder tried to find someone who would make him a hat that was this accurate. And he couldn't do it. So he taught himself millinery, hat making, in order to make a perfect Raiders of the Lost Ark hat. Now it gets better. He started a little company with a partner called the Adventure Built Hat Company. These are the makers of my hat. The Adventure Built Hat Company makes about 40 to 50 hats a year. They cost hundreds of bucks. They're totally worth every penny. They're made of the finest beaver felt that you can buy. They have the kangaroo hide brim. They are made precisely exactly the same in every possible way to the original Raiders of the Lost Ark hat. There is nothing more accurate. It gets better than that. When Kingdom of the Crystal Skull went into production, they put out a request for proposal to hat makers all over the world to provide hats for the new Raiders of the Lost Ark film. And Mark Kidder and his little company got the contract. So he went from fanboy all the way to the provider of the definitive Raiders of the Lost Ark hat. Yeah. Now it gets better than that even, just for me personally, which is that I wore one of his early hats on the show. We did a Raiders of the Lost Ark myth with the motorcycle flipping, and so I wore my Raiders costume that I had, and Mark wrote to me and he said, you know, I noticed you're wearing one of our early hats, it's not quite accurate, why don't you send me your measurements? And he literally had me measure my head both in the morning and the evening, because apparently your head size changes. And he custom made me this beautiful hat. Now the story continues because the person who did the costumes for Raiders of the Lost Ark actually turns out to be a friend of mine. I didn't know this. My friend John Landis, his wife Deborah Nadoolman, she did the costumes for Raiders. So she was the one responsible for the weird cut of Harrison Ford's hat. So I saw her last year in San Diego at Comic-Con, and I told her the story. And I showed her the hat, and she looked at the hat, and I watched her, the costumer who had chosen this look for Harrison Ford. She picked it up, she looked at it, she punched it out, she creased it, she put it on my head, and she looked at me and she said, I see you. I love that moment. So, I want to talk about why we make. Things are amazing here. We've got 50,000 some odd people here at Maker Faire. There's a movement afoot. 10 years ago, if you were in engineering school, you could almost get a degree without ever having to build anything. But we are shifting back. People are getting their hands dirtier. Now sometimes it feels like it's too late. Budget cuts are taking away all the frivolous, the quote-unquote, frivolous things in the high schools, like the drama club and the music department, and especially the shop classes. Yet, we have Maker Faire here. We have Maker Fairs all over the country. Dean Kamen's first robotics competition. Yes! 50,000 students around the world, 2,000 teams building robots. Two things are happening simultaneously. One is that we are seeing a generational shift back to making. Maker Faire and MythBusters and all the other people involved with this movement have ridden this wave concurrently with each other. The second is that it really seems like the shift away from making was more massive than anybody realized. We have a long way to go. we have to keep getting kids interested in making things and getting their hands dirty and getting them into their world. But I'm not going to talk about how. I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to talk about how. We are all a part of how right here. I wanted to talk about why. So a few months ago, I was talking with someone about how to get kids interested in making things. And we were talking about what is the impetus that gets people interested in building something for themselves. You know, toys are cheaper now than they ever were before, and they're smarter, and they do more things. The toy industry, so many toys do what they call play themselves. You actually turn them on and you just watch them, and the toy does all the work for you. And we were talking about what that impetus is, and I sent this guy to a link at a forum I frequent where people make and collect movie props. The Replica Prop Forum. And one of the big things that people are doing on the Replica Prop Forum right now is everyone's making Iron Man armor. Everyone wants to be Iron Man. But Iron Man armor costs a lot of money. For a full set of 5-glass Iron Man armor, you can spend between $3,000 and $8,000. Nobody has that kind of dough. However, you can take a 3D file of Iron Man and his armor, and you can run it through a program called Pepakura, and you can build it yourself. And I sent him this link of this kid in the Philippines who had painstakingly built this paper model of Iron Man armor, which he then painted with epoxy resin, coated with Bondo and fiberglass, and sanded smooth until he could wear a full set of Iron Man armor. It took hundreds of hours of his work. I hear Tesla coils spinning up. Hundreds of hours of work, and I sent him this link, and he said, wow, it is so the long way around, which is true. It is the long way around. And then he said, it'd be really great to get them to build their own things, rather than the things that pop culture feeds them. Yeah, wait a second on that clapping. I had a kind of a visceral response to that comment, because I felt a little bad. I am exactly these people. I'm making 2 different sets of Iron Man armor right now. Yes. You know, is there a difference? I'm not sure that dichotomy between making your own things and the things pop culture feeds you is in fact a real dichotomy. I don't think those 2 things are different. I've spent my whole life bouncing between those 2 poles. I've made hundreds of sculptures, devices, robots, furniture, clothing, for me and the people that I love, and for jobs and for a living and to pay my rent. I've also built my own R2-D2 from scratch. Anybody who went to tested.com in the last few days, I've been talking about the ZF-1 gun from The Fifth Element, which I've been working on for 10 years. One of the coolest things I ever built was one of the earliest. I built a spaceship in my mom's closet. I was working on a Super 8 science fiction film with the Caro twins who lived down the street. I think I was maybe 11 or 12. I found a couple of refrigerator boxes, and I made a spaceship, which is I just put up walls and I painted control panels on this, you know, this central console, and I made a window with a star field behind it, and we filmed this Super 8 film. And when we were done with it, I asked my mom if I could put it in the old bedroom closet, because my parents had moved their bedroom. And she said yes. So I installed the console. I cut actually pieces out of it, and I put paper under those pieces. I drew radar screens, and I drew proximity sensors, and I put lights underneath so my cockpit was actually underlit. I had a window that was separated 5 feet away from the back wall, and then I painted the whole back wall black. And I painted stars on it, and then I put Christmas lights underneath so I could sit in the seat and feel like I was in a spaceship. Why was I doing this? Because I want to be Han Solo and I want my own Millennium Falcon. I sat in that thing for hours. Maybe not hours. But sitting in that cockpit and looking at the star field and thinking about having my own Millennium Falcon cockpit gave me an unrivaled feeling of joy. What more did I want out of the universe at that moment? To have that ship. And to have the support of my parents to be able to go to the hardware store and buy the lights and lamps and pieces that I needed to put it together. They gave me access to their charge account at the hardware store from the time I was 11 on. Next thing I built was actually doing the same technology, cardboard, acetate, batteries, and I built it all into a briefcase. Again, with switches and radar sensors and screen, not real radar sensors, Sharpie, Luke says radar sensor. And I made a James Bond briefcase. Well, it could have been James Bond briefcase or it could also have been Mission Impossible briefcase. At any rate, there was a switch that said blow that up, and I'd press it and pretend that things blew up. I never knew that would happen for real. When I was 12 or 13, I had worked with cardboard enough that this idea came into my head. Fully formed. I thought, I want to make a man out of cardboard. I want to make a guy who sits on our front porch. I don't know why. I had just played with cardboard enough that I realized this is something I wanted to see, and I saw his structure really clearly in my head. And I took all this cardboard refrigerator boxes I had, and I started cutting them into long rectangular tubes for the legs, and beveling them, and taping them together with masking tape. The chest, the head, I painted him with a blue suit on. I'm going to actually put a picture of this up on our website on Tesla.com in the next couple of days so you can see it. But while I was making this thing, while I was putting it together, and this is the first thing I had built. This is the first thing I had built that wasn't from a movie. That wasn't from anything. It just came right into my head. And I remember specifically this walking into the kitchen halfway through the project. I was just feeling so good, feeling so good in my heart. I went in and I said to my mom, I was like 11, Mom, right now on August 13th, 1981, or whatever the year was, I said, I am truly happy. And the thing is that there's something really specific in the feeling of feeling that kind of happiness, was that it wasn't just that I felt really happy, it was actually that I knew it was a temporal state, that it wouldn't last, but that I was experiencing something that every artist in the world feels, this deep connection to the thing that they're producing, to the thing that they're making, connecting them to their world and making them feel super, totally, genuinely present. A few years later, I left home and I was living in New York City, and my parents, who let me use the hardware store charge account, now let me use my dad's charge account at New York Central Art Supply. And I started making sculpture really seriously in New York. I made sculpture based on the same things that I was doing when I made the spaceship. I made telephones that looked like they were out of Blade Runner, things that looked half organic, half mechanical. I loved cyborgs, Alien, Star Wars. All of these movies informed my sculpture. Guns. I made lots of weird-looking, cool, futuristic guns. And I had a girlfriend at the time who would get into arguments with me occasionally about why I was making things that were so violent. My sculpture had a violence to it. It had a malevolence, she thought. Now, it wasn't really like a fight we had. She was a philosophy major from Tufts, so she just liked to get into it just to get into it. But it was an interesting discussion because I was surprised at my stance on it. Wow, I'm standing on nothing but wire screens. Doesn't bode well. Sorry. My stance with her when she said, why do you make things that are so violent, is I said, your question presupposes that I have a choice. I don't think that I do. I'm making the things that I feel like I have to make, and I don't get to choose what I feel like I have to make. Even at that age, I understood that I was tapping into something. Call it collective unconscious, whatever you like. I knew I wasn't just making things in the void. I was having a conversation. I was having a conversation with the world around me, the world that informed me, that shaped me, that helped me understand the kind of person that I wanted to be. I was talking to my culture. It's a real conversation. And it happens way under the level of normal person-to-person conversation. And notice I said culture, not pop culture. Now, the whole dichotomy between culture and pop culture was erased a long time ago, and better and smarter people than me have written about it, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time on it here. It is a false dichotomy. I built and participated in the building of amazing things from scratch. Again, robots, galleries, theater sets, props, furniture. But the love of the objects themselves, this child's desire for the impossible toy, seen in the movie, seen in my head, and wanting to make it flesh, make it something that I had and I held, and that made my day better because it existed, that want of those things and the teaching myself how to make things in order to have those things is the engine of everything that I have achieved in my whole life up till now. So I hold this as a kind of a manifesto. It doesn't matter what you make, and it doesn't matter why. The importance is that you are making something. When you make something, the world becomes a little more parsable, it becomes a little more understandable to you. You become part of a conversation, and when you make things that you can't not make, that conversation goes really deep. And you meet other people who are making the same things they can't not make. And these people become your friends and your confidants and your teachers and your mentors. I truly believe that. I also believe when you're making, the thing that you go through, the process, the problem solving, the shaping your future with your hands, it's an inherently good and positive conversation. It makes you into a critical thinker. Everything that I've ever learned making things has universally applied to everything else that I do. Obama has made it a key part of his administration's goal to push forward the STEM initiative, science, technology, engineering, and math. Yeah. Jamie and I have been honored and lucky enough that he has tapped us to help him spread this message, and we are helping in every way that we can. But there's a movement afoot that says, well, first of all, STEM, it's just a terrible name. It's a terrible name. It doesn't give anything. It's not sexy. There's a movement afoot to add one letter to STEM and make it STEAM. That letter is A, and it stands for ARC. Science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. Art is where it begins. Art is the original mover. So I say make. But more than that, make what you want. It starts with what you want to have. When you want to learn something, you'll make it better. I get asked a lot, how do I learn how to weld? How do I learn how to do electronics? And my advice is always the same. Choose a project. Don't just read about which do you think is going to work better to learn about electronics. Reading a book about it, putting together some Zener diodes and resistors and LEDs, or building your own fully operational tricorder from Star Trek. When you have a final goal, whatever that goal is, you are more likely to finish. You're more likely to get through that point in every project when the thing you're building is kicking your butt and making you really mad because you're failing. That final goal will carry you past that. I have this mechanism, and I know it after all these years of making things. Somewhere around 70% in, working on any given difficult project I'm working on, I lose steam. I get frustrated with myself. I wonder what the hell that I'm thinking. I clearly don't know what I'm doing, and I'm going too fast, or I'm going too slow, or I'm not going elegant enough. But I know that this occurs to me every time, so I know that I can push past that. It's different for everybody, because everybody is different. What unites us is that we are creatures of creation, and we always have been. We need to keep those fires burning. So I hereby grant you all permission to make whatever it is you want, whatever you have to make. Make what you desire. Make what you have to make. Make what you can't not make, because it will make the world a better place. Thank you.
Okay. Words of wisdom from Adam Savage. One of the great makers of America, of the world. Adam, you've gotten to do a lot of really crazy things. And you're a huge inspiration, obviously, to everybody. I thank you. You're a huge inspiration to me.
Now I'd like to take some questions from these lovely people in the audience. You got a microphone? You're going to find some questions for me?
Find some people.
Who's got a question?
Who's got a question?
A young man or young woman with a burning desire with a question. Oh yeah, bring the lights up.
Bring the lights up. What we got? Now, we can only talk about so many things that he's blown up before.
Haven't blown up everything?
Yeah, I mean, what is the thing you haven't blown up yet? What do you got? good. First question is, how do you like his hat? Put your hat on.
Nice, good
Can
hat.
you sign it? We'll try and do that. Okay, can you sign it?
Absolutely, bring it up.
Okay, here we go. You're lucky, you know, he doesn't do this for everyone.
Go
Were
ahead.
you inspired by
Another
any
question.
The next question is, are there any other uses for duct tape
For duct tape.
that you've come up? Any new?
Here we go.
Yeah. Throw me the idol.
Oh, here's the
Throw
show.
me the idol.
Throw me the whip, I'll throw you the idol. We're actually looking into an Antarctica duct tape special, but Jamie and I are both really concerned that duct tape will just fail utterly in 40-degree below zero weather. So we might do some cold weather duct tape stories.
Cold weather duct tape. I like that.
Yeah, we got to follow Hawaii, our Hawaii episode, with something more challenging.
Go to the Arctic. Oh, yeah, we got a mom. You've been here all day. We're gonna watch those speakers. Hello. How are you?
Do you think you could have made a duct tape compass to get off the duct tape island?
A duct tape compass to get off the duct tape island. Yeah, absolutely. Well, first you need a vessel to hold water, and you can use the sort of the floating cork method as long as you've got a sewing needle. Use the duct tape. You can actually, if you lower it into the water carefully enough, you can make a needle, a sewing needle, float on the surface of the water using surface tension. And the duct tape might just allow you to do that. But yeah, it would point north, magnetic north, and that would give you a compass heading. Now, it may be harder to operate that compass while you're at sea in your duct tape boat, but I think it's totally doable. I'm actually a little shocked that it didn't occur to us to do that.
There you go. What do we got? We got a little one here. What's your name?
I was wondering, well, I have two questions. First, can I get your sign?
We can only do so many hours.
I'm doing, let me tell you, I'm sitting down and doing an autograph session after this.
There you
somewhere.
go.
And I'll be signing autographs for a long time for as many people as I can get to.
I'll do that. Next question.
And second, what are you going to do if you ever run out of myths?
What are we going to do when we run out of myths? Well, the day we
Impossible?
run out of myths, it means that people stop believing stupid things.
I think we have a long way to go before we run out of myths.
And on that day, I will be absolutely happy to hand over MythBusters to the wider world and give it up and retire.
Eyebrow regrowth. How do you treat it?
It turned out not to be as bad. My favorite part about singeing my eyebrow is how much I thought that was funny until Jamie mentioned that I'd also burned off half of my hair, and then my sense of humor went right out the window. Yeah, you know, it turns out it's just once you get rid of the smell of the burning hair, it goes back fairly quickly, luckily. Next question. What do we got?
Yes. Okay.
So, what would you do with limited resources if you're trying to make things?
What would I do? What?
What would your advice be to try to make things with limited resources?
Limited resources.
As an individual like you don't have, okay, someone who doesn't have a lot of funds and doesn't have a lot of stuff around them,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Well, there's a lot that you can do. First of all, I moved to San Francisco in 1990, and I spent easily the first 5 years, you know, trash day in your neighborhood, when the garbage company tells you to put all your big trash out on the curb. We would go dumpster diving through neighborhoods on that day. That is where I got so much of my furniture, so many of my tools. I found working televisions. I found a DeWalt drill with a battery and a charger that had been thrown away because its forward-reverse switch was stuck in the middle. Limited resources, the only limited resource is your brain. Everything else is totally available. You can buy used electronics and de-solder stuff off the board and use that. Electronics themselves aren't that expensive, actually. The Arduino as an entry-level kit is ridiculously cheap. Honestly, it's just about having some ingenuity about where you get your stuff. Thrift stores, flea markets. Boy, every second Saturday of the month for years, I would head down at 5 a.m. to the Foothill College Ham Radio Swap Meet down here. That thing was primordial to my makeup, and I managed to buy all sorts of great tools for about, you know, a fifth of what retail was. I was working with limited resources for the longest time, and really, it's just about what you can find out there. Dumpster diving is absolutely the best way to gather tools and materials.
I'd like to reiterate that we throw everything away in this country, so there's a million resources on the street every day.
No, you go through these industrial parks down here, actually, I'm not advocating running around in the middle of the night because the cops don't like it. Well, that's what they told me. But you go to a company that makes stuff for a living, and their dumpster is often full of stuff that they can't use anymore, but it's like sheet plastic and aluminum and materials and things that you can use in your shop. Half of my shop materials up through all of the 90s were gathered from dumpsters down here in San Mateo in the valley. Next question.
It's only your mind that is the limited resource.
Hi, I wanted to ask, out of the history of the stuff that you've made, what would you consider as your success and possibly your failure?
Like a single thing that was the biggest success?
Yeah.
Gosh.
That's tough.
Single thing that was the biggest success. That's a tough one. I mean, it's kind of like, at any given time, I've got like again, the video that we put up on Tested of my ZF1 gun. That's like, it's not 10 years, I think it's 13 years in the making. You know, it'll be done maybe in a year or maybe 2 or 3 years, but each of those projects, as it nears completion, becomes my favorite thing in the world. You know, for me, in the making of things, one of my favorite things that happens, and makers can tell you this all over the place, is there's a certain point where a shift starts to happen. You know, a musician will tell you that after a certain period of time of playing the piano, all of a sudden you just know the keys, you know them all. A chess player will tell you that a chessboard to them has a gesture to it rather than a series of moves that they're thinking through. And in the making world, there's a very similar process that happens where you stop having to actually do a lot of problem solving at the bandsaw and it starts to happen in your head. And that shift feels really great, just to sit there on a plane thinking about how to build something and running through a million ways and messing them up virtually in your head. That feels like a really key success. And it took a while before I realized that I was doing most of my building in my head. My greatest failure, man, I mean, I fail all the time, you know? I mess things up in my shop, I put something into the lathe and I start to try and cut it too quickly and it shatters. You know, I cut myself and get sent to the hospital for some stitches. That still happens all the freaking time. And I have spoken about failure here at length at Maker Faire, and I actually took that talk, which was I think from 4 years ago, about failure. And well, first of all, I made it shorter, and then I also put some laughs into it because it was kind of relentless when I did it here. And that's going up on the EG website. EG Conference is assisted in the TED Conference, and I boiled my story about real abject failure where I betrayed a friend and really screwed them over and felt worse than I've ever felt in my life about it. You know, that thing happens to everybody. It's a central fact of being human that we do that we screw up and we hurt people we love and sometimes we help people we don't like, and that's just, nobody escapes from that. Oh man, that's such a downer. Let's have a fun question.
We got a fun question. And I would say, there is no failure, there's only if you're doing, you know? If you're trying and you're succeeding. This little guy's got a good one.
What is your message for the kids of today on making like materials and making robots and things like that?
Making robots.
Specifically, I think for kids of this size.
How old are you? Like,
how old are you?
I am 11.
You're 11.
You're 11.
Well,
message for you, kid.
There's, you know, actually, are you in the Bay Area? Yes?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. I mean, you're in one of the best cities in the world for that, for 11-year-olds. You know, we've got tremendous resources. There are clubs, there are maker groups, there are local maker fairs. I mean, you've got to look online and find other communities and people doing the same things. Again, Dean Kamen's first robotics competition is an amazing gateway drug to building robots for real. Because it turns out that making robots isn't that hard. It's really not that difficult, and also the price point's gone way down from back when we were doing battle bots and trying to find suitable motors for our robots. The robot marketplace is fantastic now, and really the safety in numbers. I think my biggest advice would be find other people who want to do the same things you do, and work hard on your parents as a group to fund what you're doing.
Timothy Leary said, "Find the others."
Find the others.
MythBusters is our family show, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm curious, in the early shows, you and Jamie had sometimes frequencies of disagreements.
Yes.
In the later shows, not so much.
on camera. That was actually due specifically to one of our early producers who liked to, as the British call it, piss in our ears, which is to wind somebody up about somebody else. And we got really mad at each other, like really significantly, vitriolically angry. And then at a certain point, we just started comparing notes, and we realized that we weren't mad at each other. Now, the fact remains is that we drive each other nuts every day. I can't stress that enough. We drive each other crazy, and we get frustrated with each other on a daily basis. That frustration is based on the fact that no matter what you come up with, him or me, under what circumstances, the other guy is always going to test it and say, why would you do that if this is the case? Maybe you can do it better. Maybe this could be. So someone is you're always hitting up on a wall that's suggesting that maybe there's a different way to do it. This is exhausting. Conversationally, it's exhausting. But it also has a tremendous strength to it. And that strength is the fact that while we drive each other crazy, we are informed by a deep respect for each other. So you don't have to like the people that you work with. It is important to trust them and to respect their output. If you're not working for people whose output you respect, you should work for somebody else. Jamie and I, while we drive each other crazy, we know that left to our devices, the other guy would finish the job on his own by the end of the day. So that means that their advice has to be pretty good. So let's pick it apart. And the fact is, when you go back and forth on a solution enough, all of a sudden the right idea shows up, and it's like a light went off in the room. And when that light goes off, both of us just back away, like, that's the idea, that's the one we'll do. And honestly, half the time, none of us can tell you who came up with the right idea. Because our egos, while we have healthy egos, our egos don't get involved in the right solution, in making it our solution. They get involved in it being the right solution. The elegant solution is the one that needs to get done, not the one that you want or the credit that you want. It's been a very, very interesting collaboration with that guy. Because again, it's like we've never had dinner alone together, ever. Left to our own devices, we'll be like, all right, see you tomorrow, and we'll go off and, go separately. But the fact remains is I wouldn't want anyone else in my corner helping me build stuff. Because I can see that it makes the product stronger. And all partnerships that I know about, people like Penn and Teller, other friends of mine who are writing teams and stuff like that, they're all based on that kind of push-pull. It's super important and it has a real integrity to it. So if someone's challenging your ideas, it means that you're having to fight for them and to justify them, and that is an inherently robust process. It's instant peer review is what it is. Next question.
There we go.
So after you build the world's only transparent plastic tuba, what the hell do you do with it? Are there any development companies that are rip-offs and scams and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's hard. The noise-to-signal ratio for scammy invention companies is quite high, isn't it? Yeah, it's kind of in the roof. Well, I mean, that also gets, you push past that, I think, with community. With cross-checking. It's like I just taught my sons about searching for a problem. Like if you can't make the device that you have work, do a search for how do I make this damn device work, and then add the word forum. And you'll find people having the same problem you have, and they're informing each other. I find when I try and look for stuff and the noise-to-signal ratio is really high because there's a lot of people out there trying to make a buck on it, that as soon as I find the community of people talking about it, I hit real pay dirt. Because it's that human filtering system. Incidentally, do you know that Selmer produced a plastic saxophone in World War II? What's that? A plastic trombone. Well, so it was during the war, and all the metal was being requisitioned for the war effort, so Selmer produced a plastic saxophone. I believe that Charlie Parker actually cut an album on a white plastic saxophone.
And wait, what about Pinocchio?
What's that?
Pinocchio is the outsource. Basically, you can have something you need made and outsource to anybody who has a Shopbot or a CNC router. So you can do R&D for really cheap.
That's great.
Yeah, it's out of New Zealand. They're actually over in the Expo Hall. It's a pretty interesting one.
All of that community-based stuff is super, super brilliant and important. I mean,
community wins.
It's absolutely, it's the most vital thing because people are the best filter.
Somebody wanted to know, where'd you go? Who wants to know about the history? how did you wind up doing this?
How did I wind up doing this?
Let's do the quick review.
Okay, the quick review is that I started out wanting to be an actor. I started out wanting to be in commercials, so I was Mr. Whipple's Stockware in a Sharn commercial. I was in Billy Joel's worst music video ever, which I know it's a fairly high bar, but I was in it. And then I wasn't very good at it, so I dropped it somewhere around 19 years old. And I got a job as an assistant animator for a company in New York called Ink Tank. I moved from that into graphic design, and I moved out to San Francisco. I got into theater. I started working for George Clinton's Performance Works here in San Francisco. At the Performance Works, we were building really radical and weird things all the time. 3D displays and props and motorized things and blurring the line between 3D and reality, even in 1990. And I started to get a reputation for building props and building objects that other people couldn't solve or couldn't do. And I started working for Berkeley Repertory Theater for Beach Blanket Babylon. And my reputation grew, and eventually Jamie Hyneman called me and asked me to come work for him at his shop called M5 Studios in San Francisco. This would be around 1994. That would be around 1992. I worked with Jamie for about 4 or 5 years until I couldn't stand him as a boss anymore. And I moved on to Industrial Light and Magic, where I worked on films like Star Wars Episode 1 and 2, AI, Space Cowboys, Galaxy Quest, the only movie that I own. Yes. And I have to say, going to ILM and working was like dying and going to nirvana. You know, my first 2 jobs I ever wanted were being a designer for Legos and working on Star Wars. And when I got to ILM, you know, I'm working with guys I've been reading about since I was 12 years old, and it was an amazing place to work. Alas, the ILM model shop is no longer. They got rid of it, which is a very sad thing. I feel like I slipped in under the wire. But somewhere around 2002, Jamie got a call from Discovery about doing this show called MythBusters. And the difference was that they wanted guys who could build the experiments as well as talk about them and test them and think scientifically. And it really just happened to be this perfect confluence of a set of ideas for a narrative and 2 guys who were absolutely, genuinely curious about what was going on that made the show. It aired in January of 2003. We're coming up on, actually, in 10 days, we celebrate our 10th year of filming MythBusters.
That's impressive.
Yeah. But nowadays, everything below this level on my head is white. Back then, no white in me, no white on my hair. We've come a long way. The show aired in January 2003. We got a really good rating. We've continued to get really good ratings. In fact, this season, which is running right now, they moved us to Sunday nights. Our ratings are up 20%. So as far as I can tell, there's no end in sight for MythBusters.
That's a good segue, because this little girl here wants to know,
What inspires you every day?
why do you do this? You get up in the morning and do this every day. Not ratings. Tell me it's not ratings.
No, it's not ratings. It's not the money. It's doing something different every day. It's why I got into special effects. It's why I love theater. And I tell you, honestly, budding makers, here's a resource for learning how to make stuff. Get into theater. Theater is the gateway drug to making everything. And anything you want to try, you can try. Theater is it, man. Theater is the only art form. It is the first art form that would survive an apocalypse completely intact. So, theater was super important to me. It is doing something different every single day. And it's also, honestly, when we set out, we weren't thinking of the children. We didn't care about the children. We didn't want to inspire anybody. Honestly, it's not something that we think about. And I think that's why kids like it. They know that we're not speaking down to them. But we get emails from you guys. I'll bet you, half of you in this room have emailed me. And I read as large a sampling as I can get to. The idea that we're inspiring kids, that we're getting them interested in making things and thinking critically and thinking experimentally, it is by far the most astonishing and humbling, and I feel so grateful that we are doing this result of doing this show. So, I mean, it's you guys that are inspiring me.
I have a question.
All right, sir.
Now this has become a theme here. I'm wondering if maybe perhaps you will do some high theater for us.
High theater.
And get into the cage.
The cage again!
We have a different song for you. Who wants to have it in the cage?
The cage!
Will you do it?
All right. my papers here.
That would be me.
I don't know if I know another dance though.
Oh wait, can I get those papers? I can probably sell those on eBay, yeah?
No, I keep these. I keep each one.
I can't. Ladies and gentlemen, the Holy Kitty here. Now Adam, I don't know
Yeah, absolutely.
if you know this, but they actually have a new TV show called Pimp My Coop, which is all about pimping people's chicken coops out.
Nice.
I like to think of this as a chicken coop.
Well, it can be both a chicken coop and a rotisserie all at the same time. Well, they take away the Faraday nature and the chicken gets cooked like that.
Hey, give it up for Adam. He loves coming here. I don't know if you guys don't know this, but when we ask other people to come and speak at Maker Faire now, because we're so big, they say, yeah, we'll speak, but it's $10K. And he comes on his own accord.
Wait, people get paid to come here?
Oh, I should have told you that.
No, you know what? 2 days ago, I had a really rewarding experience. I got to give the commencement address at Sarah Lawrence College in New York. And the reason they asked me to do it was because of last year's Maker Faire. They saw a tape of it and they said, even though you don't have a college degree, we need you to come talk to our graduates. So, I mean, I've been to every Maker Faire since the first one, and I'll keep coming to every single one. I love you guys.
We love you.
All right. I'm giving up the microphone. I'm going to get into the cage.
This is for posterity. Now we're all... It's bigger. Sucker. Each and every one. Now some of you might know this song. Ladies and gentlemen, you know this is ArcAttack? Oh my God, it's a maker. All these guys did exactly what Adam said he was going to do and why he talked to you and inspired you. They decided to stop doing what they didn't like doing and decided to make these things. So I hope, Adam, that you come back, okay? It's only a nanosecond forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna do a safety sweep. I want everybody to clear their minds, refresh themselves, embrace the electricity that is about to flow through the air. The plasma is gonna burn everything around here. Now, we haven't had anybody get injured too much by doing this. We only put so many famous people in here. I don't even think of you as famous though, Adam. I think of you as like some prophet of makerhood. You're like the Godfather maker or something.
I think the safety check is clear here, Tyler.
Safety check is clear. Ladies and gentlemen, let's rock out with Adam Savage and ArcAttack. Throw me some lights. did, you did. I know it's a workout. It's a little like cage dancing, but...
A little like cage dancing. I almost took my shirt off.
Oh man, don't do that.
You don't want to see that. Unless you need a white balance for your camera.
Ladies and gentlemen, proof that it's cool to be a nerd. Proof that it's cool to be smart.
I'll be signing autographs and I'll see you guys next year. I'll see you guys next year. Thanks, guys.
Woo! But wait, that's not all. Back to the show. I'm gonna see.